Welcome to this video tutorial. In this tutorial, we cover implementing the new PAYE calculation rates that were introduced in the amendment bill as of April 2020. In this video, we'll discuss how to implement the new rates onto our payroll management system, as well as the formula that the system is using in order to get the most accurate PAYE calculation results. So to make your life easier, I have derived a table that shows you a simplified way of doing the calculations. So I've tried to make it as comprehensive as possible so that you can actually just derive the figures very easily. So I'll just explain this table. Over here we've got our lower boundary, over here we've got our upper boundary, here we've got our cumulative. Now based on the directive, those earning above 24,000, the rate of pay will be 10%, and the first 16,667 will attract a deduction of 15%, the next 16,667 20%, and so on and so on. So I've tabulated those results or those figures here for us to get a better understanding of how to calculate it. So if we look at our table here, we can see that we have our lower boundary, upper boundary, our cumulative rate, our rate in amount, and our tax charged. So the tax charged, you derive the pay as you earn by taking out the relief from the tax charged. So in this case, we can start by looking at the first row here. 10% of our cumulative is 2,400. Next row, 15% of our cumulative gives us 2,500, and so on. 20% of cumulative gives us 3,333. Now these upper boundaries are derived from the cumulatives. So for every next 16,667, we get the cumulative, or we get the next upper boundary, and above 57,333, we effect 25%. So you can see we have several columns here. So we have calculated the rate from getting our next cumulatives, or rather for our next boundaries, we have calculated the rate in shillings. Now in order to get the tax charged, we simply add the previous boundaries. So for the first case, there is no tax because it is 0. There is no tax for the first boundary. So for the second boundary, we take our first amount there. This 2,400, and because the previous boundary is 0, we leave it as 2,400. So for the boundary of 15%, the rate that will be charged there is 15% or 2,500, but the tax charged will be just the relief. So for the next boundary, we just simply take the cumulative of the first two rates. So in this case we'll take 2400 plus 2500. For anything below between 40,668 up to 57,333, the tax charged is 4,900. Then we take out the relief to give us our pay as you earn. Now the same applies for now the next boundary. We just take the cumulative rates here. So we take 10% of 16,667, add it to 15% of the same, add it to 20% of the same, and from there we are now able to get 8,233, which is the tax charged for anything above 57,334. So to get our pay from here, we just take out the relief, which is 2,400. So to justify that my formula complies with Karray, you can see here on my screen I've loaded the Karray site. Thank God Karray now has a tax calculator on their own website, so you can be sure that what you're calculating is correct. And you can see this is a guideline as applicable from 25th April 2020. So in this example, I'm going to keep it very simple, because if we can get the tax payee on the simple calculation, then we can always add other things to it. So based on the formula I have given you, which works in one line, let's use an example of a salary of 33,000. Okay, so on the Karray website, we calculate 33,000. We get pay of 1,349. So let me load my calculator here, just a normal calculator. If you have a calculator or a scientific calculator like those ones for high school, you can just test this out. So my formula states that we have in bracket our tax charged, which I've just shown you how to derive. So for a salary of 33,000, we will be on the second boundary. So we'll take the tax charge there, which is 2,400. We will add our tax rate. In this case, we'll put it in brackets as indicated there. So we'll get our rate, which is just 15%, or 15 divided by 100. Okay, and we multiply that by, in brackets, our gross salary. In this case it's 33,000. Okay, less the lower boundary which I have labeled there. So in this case it's 24,001. Okay, we close that bracket, and then we close the other bracket, and then we take out our monthly personal relief, which is 2,400. Should there be an insurance relief, you can also take it out at that point, but for now we are not using a monthly insurance relief in this setting. So you can see we get the exact amount to the decimal as the Karray site. So all this in one line. So we can try again and use another example of a higher figure. So let's pick something in the next boundary, which is between 40 and 57 which is in the 20% boundary. So let's pick a salary of 50,000. So we do 50,000 and we calculate on the Karray website. You can see it gives us there 4,366.45. So I'll just load my normal high school scientific calculator there and do the same thing with the formula that I've discussed here, which we have derived the values for. So we start by putting in an opening bracket. We look at the table which we've derived the values for tax charged, which is 2,400. Sorry, for this particular one, we are on the 20% boundary. So our tax charged on that boundary will be 4,900. So we take 4,900, we add it to our rate divided by 100. So we put there two brackets. We do our rate, which is 20, divide by 100. We close that bracket, multiply that by the gross salary that we are putting, which is 50,000, okay, less our lower boundary for that column, which is 4668. Okay, we close that particular boundary, and then we close that and take out our monthly personal relief, and we get the exact same amount as what we are getting on the Karray website. So you can be sure that the formula that I am giving you there is accurate, not only to the rounded number but to the decimal. So at this point, once you have this figure, should there be an insurance relief, you can always take it out from here to get your accurate payee result. So I hope that clarifies a lot. In the system, we go to our payroll definitions. We have our pay as you earn table here. So let us now configure. You can see we had the previous rates before our COVID-19. I have set it this way so that I can show you how to change this. So you can change this straight from the system. So as it changes, you can also change it. So let's just get rid of all these old rates and put in our new rates. So we refer to our table here from 0 to 24,000. So we can put that into the system. So from 0 to 24,000, our rate is 10%, but there's no tax charged for that because there's basically, it's anything below 24,000 is relieved from tax as per the directive. So our next boundary, we add 16,667 to our 24,000 to give us our next upper boundary, which is 40,668. So you can see here, we'll just make this inclusive as well. So 667, we just assume 0.999. okay, we can say this is 33.999 as well. So let's just put this onto the system. So for the second bracket, we have our tax charged at 2400. Our rate here is 15%. I use decimal because in the system the rates are in decimal, so our tax charge there is 2400. For the next boundary, now we take our last upper boundary. So this is 4668 all the way to 57 334. 0.9 there, you can put that as 0.9 to make it inclusive, is 20%, and our tax charged is 4,900. So 20% tax charged is 4,900. For final boundary, we have 57 334 to 57,334 to, we'll just assume infinite. There is no salary that can go beyond that number. We've just put a huge infinite number there. So the rate for this is 25%, and the tax charged for this will be 8,233.34. So that's how simple it is to amend the new pay-as-you-earn rates. So as you can see, we also have the monthly personal relief. So we are also going to effect that onto the system. Then we can run a calculation and see. So for the monthly personal relief, the system allows you to define several. So in this case, we are just going to use the general or the default one that is there. It is set at 2400. So we set our monthly personal relief to 2400, and then we can put in a salary for someone and just see exactly what we are able to get for the calculation. So I'll just pick here number 64. So we can see we've put in a basic pay here of, we can put in basic pay here of 50,000. Okay. And we process the payroll. Then we can go and have a look at our new effected rates. So you can see here, in this payslip we have our new rates, and you can also see various other things which I'm going to go and discuss on just after this. I show you how to factor in other parameters as well. So we've basically defined our pay as you earn. Let's just clean up this and remove other parameters for now so that we get our raw figures of what we would expect to get. So I'll just go and remove the benefits for now, and then we'll recreate them after this. So let me just go to the benefits and remove the benefits. What else? I think that is it, and we can now process again and see what we. So you can see now it's more, we have a much cleaner payslip. We just have the gross, the statutory deductions, and the earnings. So this is what the new PAYE rates would be on somebody that is earning 50,000. So we've done that example. So now we are going to take it uh, a little bit more complicated. We are going to have several scenarios. We are going to have a scenario whereby someone has non-cash benefits. We are also going to create another scenario for another employee who has taken up a life insurance policy at Britam and show you how we calculate that. We are also going to have another case whereby somebody has contributed voluntary pension and voluntary NSSF. And finally, we are going to have a hotel example whereby an employee resides in the employer's premises and they are subject to uh, housing relief. So there's a very big difference between housing allowance and housing relief when it comes to taxation and taxation calculation. So we are going to do that. Then still on housing, we are going to look at an example of someone who has taken up a mortgage on a home ownership savings plan and see how it's calculated on the system. So let's begin by adding a benefit. I think it was pretty straightforward in as you've just seen it. So we'll just use somebody else. In this case, we will go to our payroll details and pick, let's say, employee number 63. And we are going to say that employee, let's just remove everything first. And we are going to say that employee number 63 has an income, or rather has non-cash benefits. So let's key in some non-cash benefit scenarios that may apply to employee number 063. So employee number 063 in this case is Mr. Bob Ochieng. Bob Ochieng is employed as the general manager of our demo company. He has a salary of 40,000 and the demo company provides him with the following benefits. He has a night watchman, a house servant. He has a saloon car which he uses, 1500cc saloon car, free electricity and free water. So we are going to add those benefits onto the payroll and see how we calculate those benefits. So let's set up the benefits. We go to payroll definitions, non-cash benefits, and let us clean up everything and start afresh. So we add the benefits we discussed. So we have a night security guard. So we define that here. We deduct the benefit from the net pay. We make it recurrent, and of course it is added to the gross payment. We create a benefit for water as well. So we make sure all those parameters are ticked. We create house servant as well. I think it's predefined here. So then we create car benefit. So this is the 1500cc saloon car. So we can say here 1500cc saloon car. So we have the security, we have car benefit, we have electricity. Let us put electricity. So this is electricity benefit. We have water and we have house servant. So let us now go to our payroll transactions and uh, add this. So we go to our payroll details, sorry, and we add those non-cash benefits to our employee. Here in this example, we are using employee 063. So we go to our benefits, we start with our guard security. We say this benefit of 2000. We add our car benefit of 10,000. We add our electricity benefit of 1500. We add water 600. We add house servant of 1500. So once we add that, we just go and make sure their monthly salary is 40,000. So we come and search for our employee here. Yes, the monthly salary you can see there is 40,000. Then we process this. And we refresh our payslip, and you can now see our benefits are here. We have benefits well laid out on the payslip. So you can see we have the earnings section, which shows us the basic pay and the benefits in total. Then we have a section here under tax that shows us our liable pay, our pension and NSSF reliefs, and our non-cash benefits. You can see electricity, house servant, watchman, water. All this gives us total benefits of 15,600. You can see our liable pay from the gross is 15,600. Taking out our reliefs, our chargeable pay is there. And we can see our tax charged and our monthly personal relief. So this is how we would derive this from the system. So let's just do another example. So we'll just go to our active employees and pick another person at random. Maybe we'll pick number 59. We'll say number 59 has maybe a fuel benefit of 3,500 per month. So again, we can put that. We can say their monthly salary is, it was number 59, I believe. So we can see their monthly salary is set there. So we just process this and have a look at what we get. So if we open Bramwell's payslip. Let's just look for him. We can see our breakdown there. We can see their benefits showing, and this is what they get as their pay. So that is how we would carry out benefits scenario. So I'll move on to the next scenario, which is an insurance relief. So we're going to pick another employee here at random. Let us go to our active employees and pick, we'll now probably pick number 47, Mr. Felix. So we can assume Mr. Felix has a life insurance policy, and in his life insurance policy, he pays a premium of 3,000, and his insurance policy is from Britam. So we can start by defining the insurance policy. So we go to our payroll definitions, we go to our insurance relief types. So we have Britam here. So according to Britam, the life insurance policy at Britam is at the rate is at 15%, and the relief, or rather the premium, sorry, is at 3,000. So all this information is given to what is called an insurance certificate. So this is only becomes applicable once the particular individual has gotten a life insurance certificate from their insurance provider. So in this case, Britam issued our employee, who is Felix, with a life insurance policy certificate, which he now has brought to the company and wants to effect the relief. So we go to his statutory details here, and because we have defined the relief on the system as Britam with its 15%, we come and put his insurance premium, which is 3,000, and we save. So once we do that, we now process, and we go and look at what we get on the payslip. So you can see we've effected the insurance relief, and we see for an insurance policy of 15%, we get with the insurance premium of 3,000, we'll get 450 shillings as the insurance relief. So that will be taken from the tax charged, and therefore reduce the amount of pay as you earn payable, because it's a relief. So that's how we would go about an insurance relief. So now we move to our next scenario, where we have another member of staff who has voluntary pension and voluntary NSSF. So we go back to the system. We'll click on our active employees. Let's select now Wendy. So we can assume Wendy has a pension scheme, or is on a pension scheme, and is paying a voluntary contribution of 2,000 for pension. She also is paying a voluntary NSSF contribution of 1,000 shillings per month, and so we factor that in as well. So just before we perform the calculations, we can review the definitions of our insurance, of our pension. So if we go to payroll definitions, we look at our pension schemes. So in this case, we have permanent staff, and the employee contribution is 6%, and the employer contribution is 6%. The maximum employee and the employer contributions you can see there is 20,000. So we can use this example as the pension that we are effecting onto the system. Should the employee have a particular pension scheme like Provident Fund, where the rates are slightly different, you can always define them and select them. But for this case, we are going to use the default pension scheme, which is for permanent staff, which is 6% employee and 6% uh, employer as per the statutory guidelines. So let us now, since we have effected that, let us process the payroll and look at Wendy's report. So we go to active employees and look at Wendy. Wendy is number 038. So we look at her payslip. So you can see here we have got her basic pay. She earns 65,000. We have her pension relief. We have the monthly personal relief and the pay, and we have her voluntary pension under the deductions tab. If you look at her pension relief, her pension relief is inclusive of the voluntary NSSF, which she is contributing, as well as the voluntary pension. So if you look at her NSSF contribution here, you can see it's a total of 2080. So it is a total of her standard 1080 NSSF contribution coupled with her voluntary contribution. So you can see all that is factored in here, giving us the totals we get for the pension. So that's how we would go about catering for pension. Now let us go into housing. Now housing is very unique and a lot of people get confused. There is a house allowance, which is in general just an earning. So we can create a house allowance for somebody at random. So let us go to our active employees and pick maybe employee number 42, Peter. So let us analyze Peter's case here. So Peter just simply has a house allowance. So that really has no effect. It's just an earning. So if we go to our monthly transactions, we go to Peter. We can add 15,000 shillings as their house allowance. Housing allowance of 15,000. Okay. So that is how we would go about putting in a house allowance. Then we have housing. So I'm going to combine these two scenarios and see the difference of the results we get. So we have another scenario. We actually have two scenarios. We have another scenario. Let's just pick another employee at random. Let us pick Mr. Innocent. So we can say that Mr. Innocent is an employee a manager, the general manager of this demo company, which has its own premises. This demo company, we can assume, is a hotel or a resort, and Innocent lives within the hotel. So in this case, this employee is housed by the employer or is housed by the company and is enjoying a housing relief. We could also assume that Innocent is not just any ordinary employee. He stays on the premises because he is also perhaps a director, so he's one of the owners. So, in any case, the bottom line is Innocent is housed at the organization or at the company premises. So, we select the housed option under housing relief. Now, the value of the house rent is, for example, 20,000. So we put 20,000 there and we select the housing relief type. So in this case, the housing relief type that would apply here is owner occupier interest. So we would have owner occupier interest as the housing relief type. We leave this other home ownership total deposit at zero because that is the next scenario we are going to use. So in this case, this employee is living on the premises and is housed and has a housing relief. The house rent value or the value of quarters is what is called is 20,000. So that's how we would define the value of quarters, and we save that. We'll also pick another employee at randoms so that we exhaust all the scenarios for housing. I will pick number 62, or let's say number 40, who is Steven. Now, Steven has a mortgage. Steven has a mortgage on a home ownership savings plan. So we select the house option there. In this case, there is no value of quarters. We select the relief type as a home ownership savings plan. Now, the home ownership, the deposit that Steve put was 180,000. So we can put that as the home ownership total deposit. So in this case, this is someone who has a mortgage is subject to a housing relief. So we can also effect that and see what we get. So we've made those three changes on housing, and let's process and have a look at what we get. So if we go back to our active employees, let us now load their payslips and have a look. So we created a home ownership savings plan for Steven. Let us load that. We created a housing relief value of quarters for Innocent, who is housed at the organization's premises or the hotel resort. He stays in the premises. And we also gave a house allowance to Wendy. So let's look at the differences in how all this is calculated. So if we start with Stephen, you can see here we have the housing relief amount, which is calculated automatically by the system. So for Stephen, his house on his home ownership savings plan, his housing relief comes to 9,750. As you can see there, the home ownership savings plan, which is 4,000, you can see there. And from there, we are now able to derive the total chargeable amount, the tax charge, monthly personal relief, and finally the pay as you earn. So if we look at innocent case here, who is housed within the premises, you can see we have a different calculation here. So you can see here we have the housing there, which is set. We have their total chargeable pay. You can see it's very different from Stevens, who has the home ownership savings plan. You can see the differences there. So we have that for Innocent, who is housed within the premises, and you can see how it affects his pay as you earn. So you can see the house allowance comes as a standard earning. So these are the three different scenarios. So we have one scenario where the employee has home ownership savings plan. We have another scenario where they have owner occupier housing. And finally, we have the last scenario where they have house allowance. So this is how you would go about calculating it on the system. Okay, now that we have done all these calculations and produced all this, we now want to see how we can file returns based on this. So basically, we want to see how we integrate this onto the KRA portal through the system. So if you notice here, the payroll period is in January. So just to give us a comprehensive kind of tax return card, I'm going to push it all the way to July so that we can just see how the system works over time. So assuming we have been processing the salary from January all the way to July, with the variables things that change and the recurrent things. So let us go to our monthly payroll period, and assuming now the system has an option of creating auto backups which can be available for download, or if your system is configured in your organization, your database or DB admins can also perform additional tasks uh, in addition to the auto backups in order to create the necessary backups. So we'll assume we are satisfied with that particular month and literally go all the way until July. So let us move the periods to July. So we are now in February. Oops, sorry, we close the period. We close the period. Let us refresh to see we are in May. So we close May as well. June. So I think now we are in July. So we can use this as our example. Let's just go back and see what our payslips are looking like. So you can see it's carried forward all the recurrent transactions. So the ones that we defined as recurrent are constantly carried forward. So you can see nothing has changed on the payslips. We have just moved the periods. So let's have a look at some of the other compliance reports that we can derive from here. If we go to our deductions, we can look at our NHIF report, we can look at our NSSF report, we can look at our pay as you earn report, we can look at our pension report. This is for the current month. We can also look at yearly summaries. We can look at some summaries here, like I'll just highlight a few. Like we can look at our reconciliation there to show us the different months because we've been moving along. And we can look at our company payroll summary. Then finally, for statutory and compliance, we can look at our tax reports. We can look at a P9 report, for example. And from here is where we are going to derive some data which we are going to send to the KRA system. So if you look here, we have a summary of our contributions. This is our NHIF contribution. We have our pay as you earn contribution here. Okay, so for our pay as you earn, in order for us to successfully upload onto the KRA portal, we are going to have some PIN numbers there. So I'm just going to go ahead and put some. So let us go and see how we can pull this data. So these are some of the reports. So you can see our pension summary there. We have everything here. Now you can see as we progress on the system, our P9s automatically increment themselves. So this is an example of how it works. So let us now go back to the system. We use our export utilities here and export pay. Since we are focusing on compliance, we can look at this and see how it works. So we have the export option to KRA. So you see the system gives you an option there. So we download the KRA CSV. As you can see, we are prompted to save it. So I'm just going to save it somewhere. So I just select save. I will save it. Let me pick a suitable location. Yeah, I think where we were is okay. We'll save it in this temporary folder. So we'll save that there. Yes, there's something, we just override that. So you can see we've exported the data in the iTax format. So at the moment, working with the KRA website has a lot of limitations. So you have to download their tax file. So I'm just going to download their tax file and we are going to look at it. So I've downloaded the file. As you can see here, we have the file from KRA. So we are just going to start putting in the information. So we'll just pick our company PIN, which is, if we go to our payroll definitions, our payroll constants, we can be able to get our sample company PIN. So we copy this, we paste it onto the KRA file. So in this case, we are filing original return. We are filing it for the head office. The period is from 1st of July 2020 to July has how many days? 31 days. 31st July 2020. Then we move on to our import page. And you can see it automatically brings in all the employees that have a payments to be made. So you can see that's how we process the KRA, and from here we just move next and validate. So that's how we process the KRA files. This concludes this video tutorial on how to calculate and implement the new PAYE rates onto the system, as well as a few examples on how to test the calculations.